Hi, sixth grade. Today we are going to work on ways to start a narrative. So today you will need your journals, your packets, and the page that says ways to start a narrative, a colored pencil of your choice, a pencil, scissors, and glue. So if you need to pause the video to go ahead and get any of those pieces, please go get those right now. And then when you come back, we will resume. So let's take out our journals for a second. So I started my table of contents and I am all the way down to the bottom of the page from yesterday. I used my last page, page 29 or number 29 down on the bottom of the page. So what I did is flip over to the next page and start numbering numbers 30 through 35, and page 30 is going to be ways to start a narrative, which is what we are doing today. So please go ahead and update your table of contents. I'll show this picture again just in case you need to update your table of contents down to this point. It would be a good place to pause and resume when you're done. Before we get into our journals too much, we are going to open up to page 29, page 28 from yesterday at our scale. So we can move our scissors, glue, and colored pencil to the side for now. We are going to look at the scale for a second. So what I want you to do with the scale is write in what we did yesterday. So write in the date any way you want to, 12/01/2020. And the activity we did yesterday was our narrative transitions with the awubis or awubis words. So go ahead and write both of these things in on the very first column for our scale and score yourself based on the sheet on the right. Now, based on the sheet on the right, give yourself a score of where you would be if we were writing our narrative, if we started writing our narratives today. So if we started writing our narratives today only based on what we've learned so far, where do you think you would score? A 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4? Now, we've only had one day of narrative practice, so my guess is a lot of your scores are going to be down in the 0, 1, or 2 category. I'd be very surprised if anyone was in the 3 or 4 category, since we don't know too much about writing narratives yet. But go ahead and give yourself a score over in this empty box where it says score on the right. Once you've given yourself a score, we are going to go back and start cutting and coloring our page. So I've already started coloring, not a big deal. You guys can go ahead and catch up and pause at any time you need to. So we are just going to color the sections that are outlined in the bold color. We're also going to color the title. Now you don't have to pick green like I did. Green is my favorite color. That's why I chose it. You are more than welcome to choose any color you like. But remember, we are going over some words and over some writing. So please make sure it's color that we can see through. Using a black color or a dark brown might not be the best choice, just because we need to see around, under, and through to our writing. Your coloring doesn't need to be super precise, especially on the title, because we are going to cut it out. Now please make sure as we are working today that if you do have any work from previous days that you have not shown to me, that you do get that into me as soon as possible. Also, the work from today's class, you will need to take a picture and send in to me either by email or I'll put a box on Google Classroom. So once we are finished with our coloring, if you're not finished, go ahead and pause. But if you are finished, we are going to start cutting. First, let's just cut out the title and the thick black lines around the edges. I know you see some dotted lines, but right now we're not going to do anything with the dotted lines. So we are just cutting around this page. This is page 71. It should be the next thing in your packet. If it's not, maybe some things got shuffled around, and that's okay. So make sure you do cut out your title. We are keeping the title to this one. We're not writing in our own title. We are cutting out and gluing in the title. Now set our title somewhere to the side where you can remember it when we come back to it, because we have some interesting cutting to do on our main sheet here. So on this sheet, there are some dotted lines. Now we are going to cut along the dotted lines. Try your best not to cut over the thick black line, because eventually, as we've done before, we're going to fold these flaps in to make sort of like a book. So go ahead and just cut along those dotted lines in between each of the columns. Now some of these flaps might look familiar to you from some things we worked on yesterday in narrative transitions or in our action parts. Make sure you are cutting carefully, because we are going to write under all of these flaps. So now that we have all of those cut out, I want you to flip it over so we can't see the color side, just to the blank white side. And we are going to take our flaps and fold them inward. Now, if this is a little confusing, maybe you can find someone around your house to help you. But we are going to fold these inward like we've done in class before, so it almost makes like a little pop-up book for us when we're done. And when you fold the other side in, it should go just about to the other side. If it doesn't quite go all the way to the other side, that's okay. Or if it overlaps slightly, that's also okay. We don't need to be perfect. We just need to have everything in our journals and our notes to be taken. So when we take quizzes or tests or do our narrative writing, we have all the information. So once your paper looks like this, then we are going to open up to page 30 in our journals. Now I already have this glued in to my journal, so flip it over and glue in on the back side where it says to glue here. Ways to start a narrative: your title should be all the way on top. So this is page 30, so if you would like to write, if you keep writing your pages on the bottom, go ahead and write 30 on the bottom. So this would be a good place to stop if you are not caught up at this point, but if you are, awesome, and we will keep going. So the first flap in our little book for ways to start a narrative is where. So if you open up where, I've already written mine, but you guys can write these as we go. So where? My aunt sat hunched in the corner of the train, looking on as the children were scattered all over the train car. So this tells us where my aunt was. She's in the corner of the train. It also tells us where the children are. They're scattered all over the train. So there's two types of where in this opening sentence. The next one is when. If you open up when, we could say something like, it was a hot afternoon in late summer, and the train seemed to crawl to its destination. So this tells us also two types of when. It was a hot afternoon, so it's afternoon, and in late summer. It's late summer, it's afternoon, and they use a great vivid verb here. The train crawled to its destination. And then we go down to action. Oh, I didn't finish that one. The restless children scuttled about the train car. Annoying all the passengers. The restless children scuttled about the train car, annoying all the passengers. So we have a lot of good vivid verbs, good action words in this action flap here. The restless children scuttled about the train car, annoying all the passengers. Two different actions of things they did, two vivid verbs in our action flap. Now, if we go back up to fairy tale setting, fairy tale style, setting, and characters, we can say the phrase that I'm sure we've all heard before. Once upon a time, my aunt and 3 children took a train to Castleville. And you need a period at the end of your sentence. Once upon a time, my aunt and 3 children took a train to Castleville. So a lot of fairy tales do start with that once upon a time or long, long ago, or any of those phrases that typically start a fairy tale. The next one we have is to introduce a character. So in this sense, all of these are still talking about the same train ride. So our new character would be Charles. Charles, a bright but restless boy, never seemed to sit still. Now, a bright and restless boy, remember that is our appositive renaming Charles. So Charles, a bright but restless boy, never seemed to sit still. Now we could add something else here. We could even add on the train or near my aunt or tell us even more about Charles. But this introduce a character is a great way to start a narrative. The last one is dialogue, which I will go over. However, in our narrative writing, we are not using dialogue. So you could say, to start a narrative, "Stop that, Charles!" exclaimed my aunt. "Come over here and look at the view from the window." Again, you need a period. So we are not going to use dialogue to start our narrative writing. We're not actually going to use dialogue at all in our narrative writing, not just yet. We haven't learned too much about quotation marks. However, using dialogue will come in handy later in the semester. So now that we've finished going through all of these, I just want to do a little activity to let us know which ones we can and cannot use. So where, number one, is where. Where is always one we can use. So yes, we can use where in our narrative writing for this unit. When is number 2, the second option, and yes, we can. We can use when to start narrative writing in this unit. Number 3 is action. Action is my favorite way to start a narrative. And yes, of course, you can use action to start a narrative. Now, fairy tale style or setting. We are not writing fairy tales here. So fairy tales would be number 4. But we are not writing fairy tales for our narratives. So we're just going to write not this unit. Not this unit. We are not using this style for this unit. Number 5 would be to introduce a character, and yes, you may. A great way to start a narrative is to introduce a character, give us lots of those describers or adjectives and vivid verbs. And number 6 is dialogue, and as I said earlier, we are not using it in this unit. So those are our 6 ways to start a narrative. However, we're only going to use 4 of those 6. So please, when you are finished, take a picture and let me see all the work you've done today. I'm so proud of you guys for your work during this time of remote learning, and I will see you guys on Monday.